These are some of my favourite infamous last words from death row criminals. Erskine Childers was found guilty of the illegal possession of a firearm, and so when he was sentenced to death, the judge chose an execution method that mirrored his crime. He was to be shot to death by a firing squad, and his last words were actually to those men that would be killing him. He said, "Take a step forward, lads. It'll be easier that way." James Edward Smith was handed the death penalty for committing a robbery and murder, but outside of that, he was very known to be into black magic and voodoo, and even claimed to have sacrificed a child. He actually asked prison staff if his last meal could be this specific kind of dirt. Obviously they said no, they gave him a yogurt instead. His exact last words weren't officially recorded, but the prison guards said that he promised his ghost would haunt that prison for the next 300 years, and there was nothing they could do about it. Johnny Garrett was sentenced to death in the 1980s for supposedly killing a nun. Just a side note, a lot of people think he was actually falsely accused, and so he was killed for no reason. But either way, Johnny Garrett's last words before he was executed were, "I'd like to thank my family for loving me and taking care of me, and the rest of the world can kiss my ass."
It's been a little over 2 weeks since 17-year-old Lily Conroy was murdered in Springville, Utah. Last month, Lily had just graduated from Springville High School and planned to spend the summer living with her parents and two younger sisters. It was the afternoon of May 18th when she was found shot to death in the parking lot of a local community park. Lily grew up on the same street as 19-year-old Masao Kanga, and reportedly the two had been dating for some time. The night before her death, Lily broke up with him, and Masao responded with a series of threats. It was actually Masao's mom who requested a welfare check for her son on the afternoon of May 18th, and a couple of hours later, authorities discovered the couple in the front seat of a car at Hobble Creek Park. While Masao suffered from a fatal gunshot wound to the head, Lily was still alive and transported to a nearby hospital. Lily had practically no chance at survival, but her family kept her on life support for 3 days so that she could donate her organs to a local family in need. Tragically, she passed away on May 21st, and it's currently being investigated as a murder-suicide. Reportedly, the community is rallying behind both families involved.
Let's talk about what happened to Sandra Cantu, an 8-year-old from California who was killed by her friend's mother in 2009. Sandra Cantu was described as a happy little girl who loved playing with her neighborhood friends. She lived in a mobile home with her mother, her 3 siblings, and her grandparents. On March 27, 2009, Sandra came home from school at about 4 p.m. and went to go play with some of her friends. Sandra often went out to play with friends and knew she had to be home by dinner time. At about 7 p.m., when dinner had came and passed, Maria, her mother, went outside looking for her, and she was nowhere to be found. Maria told police that Sandra was wearing a pink Hello Kitty shirt, black leggings, and Hannah Montana flip-flops. The police immediately canvassed the area and started knocking on people's doors. The Cantus did have surveillance cameras on their home in which their grandpa had previously installed. Sandra can be seen skipping away from her home at 4 p.m. Shortly into the video, something to the right catches her attention and she goes the opposite direction of her home. Police quickly ruled out Sandra's family members and turned their attention to an ice cream truck driver who had been seen in the area lately. He had been seen talking to little girls, but he was ruled out quickly as well. The next man they looked into was a pedophile who lived near Sandra, and earlier that year he apparently kissed her on the lips. Excuse me, what? Police immediately questioned this man, and he did admit that he was attracted to younger girls, but said that he was completely harmless. A candlelight vigil was held for Sandra, but it was ruined when a distraught woman came up screaming to police. The woman was Sandra's neighbor, 28-year-old Sunday school teacher Melissa Huckabee. She said she found a letter, and also her suitcase was stolen out of her driveway on the 27th, but she didn't report it. Part 2 will be posted shortly.
A missing girl would finally be found just feet from where they found her car years prior. Hello, true crimerers. This is the mysterious case of Ebby Stepek. Viewer discretion is advised. Ebby was an 18-year-old girl who lived in Little Rock, Arkansas, and she was a senior in high school. She was dating a young man named Eric, and they seemed to be in a perfectly good relationship. In October of 2015, Ebby had gone to her stepfather and said, "Hey, can you come with me to the police department because I need to report a sexual assault?" Ebby said that a couple of boys from school had sexually assaulted her and recorded it and everything. But before Ebby could ever get to the police department, she would vanish. On October 25th, 2015, she called her brother and said, "Hey, I'm outside your house. Will you come out and meet me?" And this was around 5:30 p.m. When her brother went out there, she wasn't there. She then calls him back and says, "Sorry, I'm fucked up." And then the call ends. And that was it. That was the last time anyone ever heard from her. The family reported her missing, but the police department was like, meh, she probably just ran away. Like, they just completely disregarded it. It wouldn't be until a couple days after she went missing when the police department decided to take it a little bit more seriously, because her vehicle was found at a park nearby called Chalamont Park. In the car, all of her belongings, purse, wallet, keys, everything. The keys were actually in the ignition. Now, police would do like a very general search of the park. At one point, there was the smell of decay. They even had scent dogs brought in, but they disregarded the smell of decay as just probably a dead animal, and then they just sort of left it at that. And then the case just went cold. Without Ebby, there was no validity to the story she was telling about the sexual assaults. They didn't even know who it would have been. And just to play devil's advocate, if it was real or not real. 2 years later, there was now a new detective working on the case. He decided to kind of start from square one. There was like a sewer entrance in the area, and that's kind of where the smell of decay was originally coming from. So the detective decided to do some excavation. He had a team dig up an area where the drainage pipe let out, and inside that drainage pipe, about 60 feet from where the car was found, and about 70 feet in the pipe, were the remains of Ebby Stebbick. The cause of her death has never been released publicly, but the new detective said this was likely a homicide. Ebby's mom has been on it since day one, basically doing her own investigating since the police are doing very little. Because the police wanted to say that she just did it herself, but the family doesn't buy that, and honestly it doesn't make much sense. Her boyfriend thinks that she might have died accidentally around some friends, and that they hid her body in the pipe, but her case is still unsolved.
Life is good, baby! Hakuna Matata!
So no, I don't want your number, no. I don't wanna give you mine, and no. I don't wanna meet you nowhere, no. I don't want none of your time, and no.
I like them chocolate cocoa puffs. I like them chocolate cocoa.
Breaking news, a missing baby has been found alive 40 years after her parents were found murdered in the woods. Harold and Tina moved from New Smyrna Beach in Florida to Texas in 1981 with their infant daughter Holly. Then all three abruptly vanished. The couple was eventually reported missing by the child's grandmother, who said communication had abruptly stopped. In 1981, the couple was found murdered in the woods in Houston, Texas. However, they did not find the couple's remains for 2 months, and they said they were unable to identify them until 2021. They used genetic genealogy to positively identify the remains as Harold and Tina. Authorities say once they were able to identify the remains, they knew they were on the search for baby Holly. On Tuesday, investigators went into Holly Marie's work and told her who she was. Holly Marie, who is now 42 years old, says she's been in contact with her new extended biological family and cannot wait to meet them in person. No additional information was released on the circumstances regarding Holly's disappearance. However, officials say the investigation into the murder of Holly's parents is still ongoing. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop it in the comments.